Hello, everybody. My name is Dean Gualco, a professor at Colorado State University Global Campus. In the next couple minutes, and over the course of the course, we're going to be talking about some issues related to labor relations and unionization. We're going to have 8 separate videos. The first is going to give you a bit of a history on labor relations and unionization, and hopefully that gives you a perspective as you go forward and learn more about the course and about this important aspect of today's world in relation to labor relations and unionization. Why did unions exist? Why were they created? The most important aspect that we all have to realize is that unions were created because of the working conditions within the United States. They were horrible. And people felt like they didn't have a voice. They didn't have an ability to talk to management about some of the working conditions. And those working conditions were not just child labor, which existed before unions, but it was also the horrific manner in which the manufacturing plants, which were dominant at that time, were created and were managed. Worker safety was not a priority. In fact, workers were often disposable. In addition, many, if not most, of the profits went to management. They went to people who owned that company. There was very little contributions on behalf of employees in relation to the way the plant was operated, the future of the plant. And you also had very few rewards that flowed to the employees as well. So all of those conditions were rife for conflict. And associated with that conflict was labor unrest. Not a good thing for management. Management does not like labor unrest because that could cost money. Instead, they want to have happy, productive employees. Research tells us today, didn't tell us so much 100 years ago, but today we know that happy employees are often more productive. If you treat people well, they tend to treat you well. And because of that, we've learned that that's what we should be doing, treating employees better, treating them well. Number of conditions caused employees to say, we want to have a role, we want to have a say, we want to have some influence in where we work. In addition to having more money, in addition to having safer work conditions, in addition to protecting the youth, because many of them had to work in order for their families to make some living. In addition to those factors, it really was an attempt by employees to have a bit more influence. Did it work? Of course. It was a great triumph for workers, for employees during the times. So in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when you really saw a push for workers to have more influence, they realized they couldn't do it on their own. They realized they needed to have a voice, and that voice had to be singular, meaning one voice, and it had to have somebody who was able to have some influence to be able to talk to management in a way that management would listen. That's where the term collective, as in collective bargaining, came from. We realize that collectively, people have more of a voice than singularly. So as a result, workers decided to pool their interests together and to create what's called a union. A union is a group of people in like-minded jobs and industries who decide that it is to their benefit to collectively negotiate and bargain with management. Management can, the word we would use, can pick off 1 or 2 employees. If somebody resists, they can terminate them. It's hard to terminate their entire staff. In fact, if they were to do so, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to find employees to take their place. And so, based on that situation, and management and owners had to negotiate, bargain with these employees in that singular voice in a way that allowed the employees to have a voice and also management to have a forum to have some type of exchange and inter-exchange with employees. What we see is that management didn't necessarily meet with employees, they met with the representative of their employees, because as we created this union back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, employees pulled their monies together and then hired somebody. They hired somebody to represent them. This became the AFL, CIO, Teamsters, these big unions, huge behemoths, who had enough power because they represented all the employees, certainly most, that they were able to speak with the management, and management listened. That was the origin of management and unions' relationship. It's existed to today. Many things have changed over the years. We'll talk about those in later videos. But at the forefront of why unions were created, it was because of the working conditions, which is a broad term which includes wages and child labor laws, but also the safety factors within each and every manufacturing plant. Enjoyed the discussion with you. Look forward to our future ones. Enjoy the class.